The afternoon sun blazed against the factory's cold steel walls, its harsh glare mocking the pain that still lingered on the ground below. A tiny doll lay shattered on the dusty pavement, its arm torn and face streaked with dirt. A silent witness to the cruelty that had just unfolded. Nearby, a young woman struggled to rise. Her blonde hair was tangled, her lips split, and one cheek already swollen with bruises. Beside her stood her daughter, a frail 6-year-old girl clutching the broken doll tightly to her chest. Her wide, tearful eyes darted between her wounded mother and the empty road where the men who had hurt them had just fled, laughing. If you believe in kindness, in standing up for those who can't stand alone, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support helps us bring these true, heart-touching stories to those who still believe in second chances. The mother's name was Clara. A young widow holding her fragile world together with nothing but courage and love. She worked endless shifts at the Weldon Auto Components factory, barely earning enough to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table for her little girl, Hazel. Yet she never complained. Each morning, she'd tie Hazel's yellow ribbons and whisper, "One day, things will get better." Hazel always believed her. Because when you're 6, every promise your mother makes feels like the truth. But that day, something inside them broke. Along with the toy, Clara had discovered that the factory manager and his men had been underpaying her for months, exploiting her desperation. When she finally confronted them, they laughed in her face. When she pleaded, one of them shoved her hard against the wall. And when Hazel ran in, clutching her doll and begging them to stop, one of the men snatched it from her small hands, tore off its arm, and threw it into the dirt. Then they walked away, leaving behind a bleeding mother and a sobbing child under the pitiless sun. Clara wiped the blood from her lip and forced a trembling smile. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's fine," she whispered, though her voice was heavy with pain. Hazel said nothing. She only held the broken doll tighter, her tears falling silently onto the ground. But fate wasn't finished with them yet. From the distance came a low rumble. It grew louder, deeper, until it thundered through the air. Hazel looked up to see 5 bikers approaching, their chrome Harleys glinting beneath the afternoon light, black vests emblazoned with a red, winged skull Hell's Angels. They slowed as they reached the scene. The leader killed his engine first. He was older, rugged, with salt and pepper hair, a thick beard, and tattoos winding down his arms like inked memories. His vest bore the initials RL Chills. When he stepped off his bike, the world seemed to still. He didn't need to ask what had happened. It was written in the bruises on Clara's face, in Hazel's trembling hands, in the doll lying broken on the pavement. The biker's jaw tightened. He crouched until he was eye level with Hazel. His voice, though rough and gravelly, carried an unexpected gentleness. "Who did this?" he asked softly, his eyes doing most of the talking. Hazel lifted her tiny hand and pointed toward the factory. Behind him, the other bikers exchanged silent glances. The kind men share when words aren't necessary. The leader stood, his shadow stretching long across the ground, and nodded once. Moments later, the 5 engines roared back to life. An unholy mix of thunder and justice. Clara cried out, "Wait! Please, don't!" But they were already gone, roaring through the factory gates. The laughter that had echoed from inside fell silent as the leather-clad riders pulled in, their engines growling like caged beasts. The factory manager stepped forward, trying to hide his fear behind a crooked smirk. But it faltered when he saw the fire in the biker's eyes. No one knows what was said inside that factory. But people remembered the shouting, and how quickly it turned to silence. A heavy silence. The kind that settles when something has ended. When the bikers emerged again, the factory floor was still. The men who had hurt Clara didn't laugh anymore that day. Hazel clung to her mother's hand as the riders returned, their engines rumbling softly now. The leader stopped beside them, reached into his vest, and pulled out a new doll. Soft. Clean, its blue dress fluttering in the breeze. He handed it to Hazel, who gazed at it through her tears. Then he took an envelope thick with bills from his wallet, and placed it gently in Clara's trembling hand. She tried to refuse, but he only shook his head. A silent gesture that said, "You've been through enough." The bikers turned to leave. Before he mounted his bike, the leader glanced back at Hazel one last time. She managed a small, tearful smile and hugged her new doll close. With a final roar, the 5 engines thundered down the street. Men the world called dangerous, yet who had just done something profoundly kind. The next morning, the factory gates stayed shut. Rumors spread that the management had abruptly resigned. Clara never saw those men again. And for the first time in years, she walked home with her head held high. Beside her skipped Hazel, clutching her new doll, the sunlight gleaming off its face. Something had been restored that day. Not just a toy, but faith. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Every story we tell reminds us that compassion often comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes even from those the world misunderstands. Before you go, tell us in the comments. Would you have done what those bikers did? Because sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. They wear leather and ride straight into the storm.